angels waging war in the unseen realm. Global events fulfilling biblical prophecy. Eternal life. What lies beyond mortality? From analyzing the paranormal from a biblical worldview to the discussion of cutting-edge science and technology, conspiracy, discovery, special investigative reports. Unafraid to explore the challenging issues facing humanity. Welcome to another edition of SkyWatch TV.
Living as a Christian in the world can be really difficult, but probably there's no place more difficult than in Hollywood. Welcome to SkyWatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. Our guest knows a little something about that. He's an actor and director. He starred in a number of films, including Born American, Delta Force 3, appeared in a number of episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger, and when you hear his name, you'll know why. He's also directed a number of films, including Mission Air and the just-released Amerigeddon. I should also mention Birdie and Bogey, since he wrote and starred in that as well. We are pleased and proud to welcome Mike Norris to SkyWatch TV. Mike, welcome.
Derek, thank you so much, sir.
Hollywood is obviously not a place where you see a lot of Christian product coming out of the studios, film and television. How young were you when you began to see that world up close? And as you grew older, how difficult was it to live as a Christian in that world?
Yeah. You know, it was very interesting because early on, I came to Christ as a young man, a young teenager. And so in my years in Hollywood, I was still a believer, but I was living a very secular world all the way through the 80s, the 90s. It wasn't until my wife and I were getting married that we wanted to be a good Christian family. It was very important to us that we wanted to be a Christian family and really dedicate our lives to that. And that was about the time Walker, Texas Ranger was happening. So as a director on Walker, I had the opportunity. I was kind of known as that crazy Christian guy on Walker. And so as the TV show evolved, we got more into Christian theme. We started out with a little bit of Indian mysticism.
I remember that,
we kind of, we were just trying to find our legs in the show. And but my dad kind of put his foot down and he wanted to put out a Christian message. And thankfully, because I got to direct all those episodes, which was really great. But it's interesting because Hollywood is now embracing the Christian movie. Why? Because they can make money at it. There's money to be made. So I don't think there's any reason in Hollywood they're going, well, let's make Christian movies because, we could spread the word of Jesus around. Hollywood's got nothing to do with that. And it was a very conscious decision on my part once Walker was over. I wanted to make films that glorified Jesus. That was my passion. And it was kind of at the time my wife and I were building our family and having kids. And so when Walker was finished, I said, we're not going back to California. I'm not going to raise my family out there. So we kind of rooted in Texas, and it's been a huge blessing to us.
So you saw in California while you were there, even as a Christian, you thought, and you're singing my song here because I spent most of my broadcasting career in top 40 radio, and it was after my daughter reached a certain age that I began to realize, hey, I don't want her listening to this music over here that I was telling kids that they should listen to, and maybe I need to reevaluate things. What was it that you saw in Hollywood that said, this is not a good environment for my children?
Me. I didn't want my kids to have to struggle with the struggles I had growing up. Look, being the son of Chuck Norris carries a responsibility, because one thing I would never want to do in any way, my dad worked long and hard to build up his name, his image, his brand, and I was always very cognizant in my mind that I wanted to honor that. and never disgrace that. So it's kind of the same thing now with my kids. You know, I'm trying to build something that they could then, as they get older, say, you know, this is something that's important to us, and we want to honor our father like my father honored his father. So, Los Angeles just isn't the place to do it. It's, you know, there's enough battles out there we've got to fight. And just being in LA, I just can't see it. And I like to be at home. I don't want to be on the 405 freeway, you know, 3 hours a day going nowhere.
Yeah.
So Texas is good. Texas is good. They're in a good school. We're in a good church, and life is simple there.
Amen. Now, you made an interesting comment and about your dad. It took me a while as an adult to realize that my dad, what he had sacrificed and what he had done to try to be a good father. And thankfully, he had the opportunity to serve as the best man in our wedding, and because he truly is, you know, in my view, the best man I knew. But there were a lot of kids of Hollywood stars who obviously don't treat their father with that respect. What was it that your dad instilled in you that made you want to honor his image? Unlike some of those other kids who believe that they've got a license to do whatever because my dad is.
Yeah, very good question, because I know a lot of sons of that their life has just been tragic.
Right.
First off, I have the Lord in my heart. Okay, so that just because of that, there's certain things that we know and that we know are right. And I kind of forgot the question for a second.
What was it that your dad instilled in you? I mean, because again, there are a lot of parents out there in Hollywood who are, well, frankly, they're so messed up they shouldn't be having kids in the first place. And
you know what? My dad instilled fear in me. You know, that was one thing. He was a disciplinarian, and I was not the best kid. I mean, just in full disclosure, I kind of got into trouble. I went off the tracks a little bit. But one thing I always was respectful. And my father taught me the importance of respect. And so I think that's something that is carried over for me. Now, like I said, I know a bunch of kids that are the sons of that they can't deal with it. But I think you have to have inner peace within yourself and know who you are as a man in order to, you know, I live in my father's shadow, but you know what that does? That protects me from the sun, from the glare. I use it as comfort. I use it as shade. It's nothing more. And I'm not trying to fill his shoes. I would love to create my own thing like my father did. But I'm so happy to be where I'm at, being the son of Chuck Norris, making films that I'm passionate about. So I've seen it happen a lot where, you know, people are dead because of their famous parents. I've seen it where they OD on drugs or whatever it may be.
Right.
And that's really, really sad. I use being the son of Chuck Norris to my advantage. It's my birthright. That's who I am. And I'm very blessed. And so I protect that very much so. It's a very important thing, and I want to protect it, and I want to protect my father because he deserves it and he's earned it.
And we see that around here with some of the folks at SkyWatchTV too, and that's really neat. And it's an interesting comment you made too, because about, you know, your father instilling some fear in you. I'm about 4.5, 5 inches taller than my dad was. And yet in my mind's eye, even though he's been gone 10 years now, I still am looking up to him. And that's...
Yeah, I'm a little bit taller than my father, and he still scares me.
One of the funniest lines, and you probably have seen these too, one of the funniest lines I ever heard was, "There is no Darwinian evolution. There are only species that Chuck Norris has allowed to survive."
Yeah, that's right.
Well, when it came your turn to step out on your own and begin making films, again, knowing that Hollywood is in this for the money, how difficult is it to say, well, look, you know, the money is fine. And of course, we want to make more than, because that's what allows us to continue making films with a positive message. How difficult is it to line folks up and then say, but the message has got to take precedence over the money?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, with our film Amerigeddon, very early on, it was very apparent that this was a message that we were sending out. It was more than a movie. It was very important to Gary Haven, who wrote the screenplay, that we get this message out there. My task was to take what was in his brain and his idea and bring it to life and bring it to the screen. And yes, it's, there are financial issues involved. We've got a big crew, everybody's getting paid.
Right.
Gary's placed a large investment into it. So the business part is very important. But with the film Amerigeddon, what's very interesting to me, because I wasn't as awake 2 years ago when we started this. Christian man, I love the Lord, all that. But there's another thing going on that I think a lot of people need to be aware of, and they just aren't. It could be out of apathy, they don't want to know about it, and these are good people. But our world is at a tipping point right now. And it was very important that I was able to tell Gary's story in a way that honored his message, and I'm very proud of that. Now, we are blessed to be doing well in the theaters, and we're going to be moving around, and we're taking a very smart approach as far as the distribution also. He could have spent millions and millions and millions and just saturated the market and buy your way into people's homes. But I didn't feel that was the best way. Gary didn't feel that was the best way. We wanted it to be organic. We wanted people to respond to the message. So what we've done is we went out to 30 theaters, and in those 30 theaters, we were the #2 movie in all those theaters, which was crazy. But we found that after the first week, we started dropping off a little bit. So we went back and thought, well, okay, if we're going to go somewhere and do good for a week, why don't we just be like a road show? We've got 30 prints. These are very expensive prints that you have to make now. So let's just take these up, recycle them, go to a new area, and do it all over again until October, when Sony Pictures releases it on DVD.
Okay.
But we want to keep the narrative going. We want to keep people involved, engaged, and so I'd encourage people to go to AmerigeddonTheMovie.com, and Gary's written some amazing blogs on there. We're going to have a lot of really interesting content, but we're just trying to, we're trying to find where the people are. We've spent resources trying to figure out who is it that wants to support this movie, and we're trying to reach them right now.
There's a difference between Christian movies and movies that have a Christian theme that are out there for the money. We'll talk about that as we continue our conversation with Mike Norris on SkyWatch TV right after this. America isn't the same country that we grew up in, but it's hard to get back what we've forgotten we had. That's why Defender Publishing presents When Once We Were a Nation. 12 chapters, 12 authors, each one remembering when once we were a nation of strength, of rugged individualism, of dreams and opportunity, when once we were a nation of faith. From authors like Tom Horn, Chris Putnam, Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis, Sheila Zielinski, and more. And when you order a copy of the new book, When Once We Were a Nation from SkyWatch TV, we'll add these books free. Dancing with the Devil, an honest look at the occult. Culture Clash, Islam's War with America. Conspiracies and the Cross, how to refute the most popular attacks on the gospel. And God Bless America by Todd Starnes of Fox News. A $95 value for only $19.95 plus shipping. When Once We Were a Nation from Defender Publishing, because the first step to getting it back is remembering what we had. Welcome back to SkyWatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. Remember to log on to SkyWatchTV.com, where you find exclusive online content, interviews we can't fit into the network TV schedule, the daily news updates, look at science every week with Josh Peck, Into the Multiverse, Sci Friday with me and my best friend, my wife, Sharon Gilbert, and of course Skywatch Women, hosted by Sharon as well. All of those linked at SkyWatchTV.com. Mike, you mentioned that Hollywood is putting more of an emphasis on Christian films, but we've also seen some very big budget films out there with biblical themes that really weren't true to the biblical message. Movies like Noah and Moses, big names, A-list actors, Russell Crowe, Christian Bale, and they weren't really true to the biblical narrative. How difficult is it to get a Christian movie with a Christian message that's true to Scripture through Hollywood these days?
It's possible. It's possible, but I really believe that's by design what Hollywood is doing with the films like Noah. And a number of big budget Hollywood movies, whatever the issue may be, if it's a Christian or if it has to do with the New World Order or aliens, whatever. These are all real things. These are all very real things, but it's how the message is delivered.
Right.
And they're delivering it. It's like a pig with lipstick, you know? It's still a pig. And it's a lie to me. And I believe it's deception. And I believe Hollywood is trying to deceive people. So when believers go out and they do make a film that they are pouring their heart and soul out to, and it's a biblically fact-based movie with a great story, there will be resistance, but once Hollywood sees that there is an audience for it, they will jump on the bandwagon. There's a company, PureFlix Entertainment, great friends of mine, that now have a deal with Universal Pictures. And I'm praying to God that their message doesn't change because of this big Hollywood deal they have. But that's why, you know, it's very interesting. I've waken up a lot today just by SkyWatch TV and the whole thing, and I'm very impressed with how y'all do everything here. And it was very eye-opening to me because there are people out there that are real, true. They speak the truth on TV, and you're not handcuffed by not only Hollywood, but 95% of all media is owned by 6 companies.
Right.
You know, and so this gives me hope. I mean, SkyWatch TV, you give me hope that there is news out there that I can, you know, now I could go to and watch. I have a few things that, you know, I kind of get my news from, but this platform is so important. So important, and I just applaud you and everybody here for what you're doing. It's great.
Well, you raise an interesting point, and I think that there are some folks in media, you know, whether it's through the medium of television or film, or the medium of just what we're doing with you know, SkyWatch TV and using the internet and social media. But you saw the world up close, and arguably Hollywood is America's equivalent of Babylon. I spent a lot of time in the world, and so my perspective was shaped, I think. I have an understanding of what works in the world and what people are looking for. In fact, it was kind of funny here. We recently had the singer John Schlitt, who was the lead singer of the award-winning band Petra for many years. And I was told, well, you're going to have John Schlitt in. And I say, oh, okay, well, fine. I've interviewed plenty of artists back in my radio career. But I didn't really get excited until I realized he was also the lead singer of Head East, which was a secular band that he was in front of before.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, but you know, that's my perspective. But it allows me, I think, to talk a little more to people who aren't already in the choir, because of that experience, and then a number of years also in sales, dealing with people on a daily basis. And again, outside of a Christian setting per se, all of that is lead into your question. A question for you. How has your background and growing up essentially in Hollywood changed what the way you would bring a message, or the way you bring a message to a film, as compared to somebody who's, say, coming out of the Christian film industry, or somebody who's been in church and has that worldview from you know, toddler on up? Yeah.
You know, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how to answer that. I just know, for me personally, there are certain stories that come to me that I believe are divine appointment stories. I was sharing a story, and I'll make a short story even shorter. In 2008, I kind of hit a rough patch. I became an investor. That didn't work. And pretty much put my family in ruin. And my wife goes, "What is it that you do?" And I go, "Well, obviously I'm not an investor." She goes, "You make movies." And we went out and made a film called Maggie's Passage, just with the bare bones crew. But it was such I felt a godly project. And we did it, we put it together, and my family and I got in our car, and we went from church to church. We'd screen the movie, sell DVDs out of the back of a car. And that got us back on our feet again to where we could then start pushing forward without, the stress that, we were under at the time. And as I sit here right now, I just feel it in my spirit that that's like where I'm supposed to go. Back to simplify everything within the film industry. I don't know why it has to be so complicating. Amerigeddon, it was an amazing project to be a part of, amazing project to work on. I've learned so much. I'll tell you what, actually, I think Amerigeddon may have saved my life because I believe we are in the end times. I don't know exactly how it all looks, but I know from this movie that I've prepared myself enough. I was prepared spiritually, but was I prepared, with my stuff and with my family? And it's like I say, Captain America is a great movie. Amerigeddon's a great movie that could possibly save your life if you listen to the issues within the movie.
Right, okay.
And that was, I didn't know it at the time. And it wasn't until we were done with the film that I'm looking at it as a whole, as a bystander going, wow, I need to research that more. I need to research that. And that's what I encourage the audience to do also, is within this movie, do your own research because we're living in a scary world right now and there's no way around it. And I want people prepared for that.
That's a really good point. And I guess the way I was asking the question and doing it badly was based on some observations that I had from some of the associations we had, Christian bookseller associations. I've written a novel, Sharon's written several novels, and we were at one of those. In fact, we saw your dad at one of those conferences. And it occurred to us that most of what was being marketed to Christians in the way of film and fiction fit a very certain formula. And our novels didn't, which is why we are no longer with that publisher. So you got, crop circles and aliens and stuff in here and government conspiracies, which they weren't comfortable with, especially back during the George W. Bush presidency. The government wasn't supposed to be, they were supposed to be on our side. So I guess what I'm asking is, we're trying to bring a little more realism because not everybody gets saved at the end.
Yes.
Not all of the professing Christians are the good guys, and not all of the villains or let's say not all of the non-Christians in life are the villains. And we were incorporating that into our novels, which I can't think through the. So is some of that making its way into your storytelling as well?
Absolutely. It has to because, it's just like technology. The audience is getting more sophisticated, but they're also hungry for the truth. And if you put the truth out there, they'll watch it. If it's good enough, they'll watch it. And that's very important because, forever, the Christian movies have just been the formula A, B, C. There's the crisis, there's the redemption. He's saved, everybody lives happily ever after. That's not the world we're living in.
Life doesn't work that way.
Not even close, especially in the times we're living in now. Absolutely, people need to be right in their spirit.
Amen.
They've got to. But there's a whole nother layer. And there's also a lot of stuff, going back into the Old Testament that people don't want to, go there too much.
Right.
But that's where the meat is. I mean, that's where the, I believe in aliens. But I believe they're demonic. So I've got no problem saying that. But in the Christian world, you don't really want to bring that stuff up. But what have I got to lose? I've already been kicked out of Hollywood. So it's not like they're going to do anything for me. So I'm going to do my research and speak my truth. And then I'm going to surround myself with people that I find intelligent, read their work, and converse with them. And that's just how I'm doing. I don't need Hollywood. I don't need it. I live in Texas, and coming here today, I had an epiphany. I really did, and I think it was something really stirring in my spirit that maybe I was going about things the wrong way, trying to, work within the confines of the Hollywood system when maybe I don't need Hollywood at all. But on Amerigeddon, they've been very difficult. They're blocking our way. Everywhere we go, there's always a problem. These theaters can't take you for whatever reason. And it was today I started thinking, do I need Hollywood? Maybe I'll just bypass Hollywood altogether. and go right to the people.
Yeah.
This is what we got.
That's what the internet is for. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, another question I want to get to here, because we have heard a little bit of this. You've seen kind of behind the scenes here, and we're doing a lot with people wearing multiple hats.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing that you had to do that on Amerigeddon as well. But what we've seen in the film is very high production quality. Do you get any pushback? What kind of reaction do you get from Christians who see the film and see the production values in the film and say, oh, well, clearly they're all about the money on this film?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because, Amerigeddon has been, people either love it or they hate it, which is fine. I've got thick skin. I could take a bad review just as good as anybody else. But it was very important that, we didn't have the big, huge Hollywood budget. We just made the best we could with what we had. And everybody on our crew was committed to doing that. And so I have to really applaud everybody that's part of the team, because everybody worked really hard. And without them, I got nothing. Because especially with the technology these days, I've got 25-year-old kids, I'm asking, hey, what do I do with this? So really my job was to just make sure the story was being told and keeping the train moving in the right direction. And, but there was a lot of effort that went into that. I've never dealt with CGI before. Having an EMP explosion, that was just
how do
nothing.
we film that? Yeah.
And we made it all.
Yeah.
And so it was a great exercise just for myself to see how far I could push it on X amount of money. And I think we did a great job with that.
With just about a minute left, Mike, if you had one word of advice for an up-and-coming budding filmmaker or storyteller who is looking for a way to tell stories based on biblical truth, what would you say?
Well, based on biblical truth, I'm not really sure, but the thing I could really tell people is before you start a project, know who your audience is, know who this is going to go out to, and then kind of reverse engineer everything. That's very, very important, because a lot of people have these passion projects and this is my story, and they become so legalistic about it. But the audience may not want to see it. So you really need to kind of do your research and kind of figure out, here's the script, let people read it, see if they've got a good feel for it. On a business level, you need to do that. So I encourage people to find out who the audience is they're going to make the film for.
Mike Norris is the director of the film Amerigeddon, which produced and written by Gary Haven. Mike, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much. We appreciate you stopping by today. And we thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.